Welcome to this week's IG Live, coming at you on a special day and time. Today we are going to be talking to author Reem Faruqi, and I have quite a few of her books here on display for you. She has written a lot of wonderful books, but we're mainly going to be focusing on her latest one, which is The House Without Lights. And this is a perfect book to read today. We know there are a lot of kids who might be feeling a little left out or a little awkward explaining to their friends why they don't decorate for a winter holiday like Christmas or Hanukkah. House who is wondering why this family is not decorating this time of year, and then later finds out that they're decorating for Eid instead. So we'll be talking about that today, as well as some other books. Hello, hi.
Hi, I was just making sure it worked
Yeah.
because I'm sideways.
And I'm sorry, I had a little technical problem. That's why I kind of was on and then had to come back. But
No, it's okay. My kids were like knocking on the door, and I was like, no.
not now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining. I know it is so hard when you have young kids, so I appreciate you working that out to be here with us today.
No, thanks for having me. And I love your book display. I have my books too.
Yay.
I'm just I'm out of town, so I don't have my bookshelf, but I do have the books.
Yes, wonderful. Well, thank you. And thanks for taking time. And for everybody who's joined us today on a special day and time, which I think is actually the perfect time to be talking about your book. But we'll get into that in a minute. First, I would love to hear more about how you became an author. What was that journey like for you?
Yes. So I used to teach second grade, so I was around students all the time. And every day after lunch, I would do a read aloud. And I think when I would do that read aloud, it was almost like I was learning the books that my students really resonated with. It was like either a hit or a miss. Which books did they really love? So when I became a stay-at-home mom, I always loved to write and I loved to read. I thought, what if I try to write a children's book? And I'm really glad it worked out, but it did take a few years.
So what kind of books did you find that resonated with them?
They loved books with refrains, something that they could kind of chime along with. They loved funny books, but I'm not as good at funny books. They loved books with feeling and emotion. Even what surprised me was they could handle the heavy books too. Like
Mhm.
so many times we think they can't, but they can, and almost even better than we can.
Huh. But that's a good message, I think, especially now with all of the book bannings that are happening, and that's one of the main reasons is that people think, oh, this is too heavy, this is too much for kids. So,
Yeah, they can do it. And they often have so much to contribute to the conversation. So many times we think children don't understand what's going on, but they do.
hmm well, and which is why I love like some of the topics that you covered in your books, which sometimes can be pretty heavy too. And I something I'm really curious about. I love getting to interview somebody who writes for different age groups. Like I always wonder, like, well, how do you decide which story is going to be for what different age group? But you also write in a lot of different formats, and I know you touched on that once on your blog that you have like it's like you're toggling between different voices in your brain: blog Reem, Instagram Reem, micro essay Reem, long essay Reem. So how do you do that? Is there something like that you physically do to kind of help yourself switch gears mentally, or how does that work?
It's a good question. And you know what? I don't think I have a really clear answer. I think it's just I wake up in the morning and it's almost like I see which voice is in my head at that time.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm blogging, that's just sometimes for marketing. So that's more less creative thinking there. But if it's like children's books, just even something I do is I go to the library, and at the library, every type of book is there. So if I'm in a children's book phase, I might be reading more picture books then and really seeing the way the language is. And that's easier because then I'm already in that mode. And sometimes I'll just wake up and I'll feel like writing for middle grade. And then I have a lot of middle grade books that I'll read. Um, Honestly, it's so random. Sometimes there'll be different voices a day. Just kind of depends.
Oh, I love that though, that you just allow yourself to just go with whatever mode you're in that day. So does that mean that you work on multiple projects at the same time?
Kind of. So I do like to, when I'm totally in a project, kind of stick to that because it's really tricky toggling. So for example, if I'm working on a middle grade novel in verse, at that point, that's usually where all my energy is going. if I'm doing something, picture books are different because there's so much fewer words, still a lot of work, but that's easier to kind of jump back and forth on like different tabs like on a computer. But if it's like a book for middle grade and I'm really focusing on the plot, I just have to sort of give it my all. And then, we're humans, we're busy, we don't have that much time. So sometimes even if it's just a few minutes a day or in the week that I can give to it, it's usually just focused on that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure we have time to talk about your latest book, which you kind of already mentioned, The House Without Lights.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's told from the point of the view of a house who's
Yeah.
surprised not to get decorated for a winter holiday like Christmas or Hanukkah, and then
Yeah.
later finds out it's going to be decorated for Eid. But this is such a creative way to tell the story. How did you come up with the idea to do that?
So it's so interesting. I had the editor for this book is Dana Chidiak, and she had reached out asking, was she had a friend who had a child who um, was Muslim, and just like my kids, it was almost like we were feeling some, I don't say Christmas envy, but some loneliness for being left out of the season. And she was like, "Do you think maybe you could come up with like a story for it?" Like a solution. And in my head, I was like, but we don't have a solution. Like our holidays are based on the lunar calendar. And every day I would be walking my daughter in our neighborhood, which has a holiday lights competition. And like we were like one of the sad houses on the block that didn't have Christmas lights or festive lights. And I remember thinking I was going to write back, well, I'm in the same dilemma and I wish I had a solution or something fun to contribute, but we're kind of stuck. And then just by chance, I was visiting my mom, and my sister-in-law's name is Hoda, just like the character of the book. And I was kind of saying, it's really sad, but like we don't really, Christmas is hard because like we don't really get to do anything fun. And she grew up here and she was like, Christmas is so much fun. And I was like, really? Her parents were doctors, just like the characters in the book. And she was like, my parents would go work every Christmas. And she was like, we would have so much fun because my parents would be gone. There they are. They have a stethoscope. So she was like, they would be gone every Christmas, and my cousins would come and my grandparents, and we would have so much fun in the house, just us. And they would order Chinese food. And I was like, oh, and I thought, that would be really cool to sort of touch on. And then I thought, how could I make it even like picture book, something different? And that's when I had the idea, oh my gosh, it would be really fun if the house told the story.
I love that. And I love that detail that you mentioned about the parents going to work on Christmas
Yeah,
so that other people can be with their families. And I know that's something people have mentioned in reviews.
yeah.
And as somebody who I also, as a Baha'i, I didn't grow up celebrating Christmas,
Oh,
at least not in our
okay.
house. We did, of course, with friends or extended family. But so I love the idea of this book. What do you hope that readers take away from it?
You know what? It's been really nice. Online, teachers have been sharing their students' thoughts, and something as simple as not everybody celebrates Christmas. I think that would be number one. And not everybody celebrates your holiday. Like my focus of this book was my holiday, Eid, and I don't even know, sorry, what holidays Baha'i people celebrate. If you do you celebrate a
We
holiday?
do. We have a lot of different ones, but like I guess what would be like the equivalent one, the gift giving time is a Yamiha, which is in end of February. So it's not that long after, but it's still a
Okay.
few months off.
Yeah, you should write a book on that. So just anything. I think just if we know that not everybody celebrates the holidays we
Mhm.
do. And especially at this time of year in the United States, it's so Christmas
Right.
focused. Like everything, like we were at the gas station and the cashier was asking my daughter, "Are you excited for Christmas?" And it's just like I was like, "Oh, well, and it's hard to explain, but I mean, I am excited for the season, but I'm not physically as celebrating Christmas. So it's
Right.
just but it is nice to have something to look forward to, um and for people to know if I don't have Christmas decorations up, I'm still happy, if that makes sense. I'm
Yeah, no,
celebrating or doing something different.
I remember when we were kids actually in kindergarten, and the teacher had us write letters to Santa Claus, and my parents had to
Um,
go and, well, could they write a letter? Can my kids write a letter to the grandparents or something, But
um,
it was that people not really thinking that not everybody is going to be celebrating.
yeah,
But I also I love it for kids that they would get to read this and feel seen, like, oh, we're not the only ones, especially because a lot of kids, maybe they grew up where there are other Muslim or other kids that are not celebrating, but a lot of kids might not. They might be the only family at their school or on their street. So I just love that
Yeah.
they, they would feel included. And that kind of leads me to, just the point that I think that's what a lot of your books do. They offer this representation for kids who say they might feel bullied for their Muslim identity, like in Do You Even Know Me? Um,
Yeah.
or just have trouble explaining aspects of it, like in Lailah's Lunchbox, where,
Yeah.
kids might feel a little awkward or they're just not really sure. They don't maybe necessarily have the words for it. And so they could take your book in and share it with the class. What do you think it means for these young Muslim kids to have these kind of books where they can see themselves and get ideas for how to deal with the situations they might face?
Um, I hope acceptance and courage to share their stories, even when my books are not there. You know how I was just telling you about that cashier who told my daughter, I hope you're like, what are you doing for Christmas? And I wanted to share, like, I was like, oh, we don't celebrate, but, happy holidays or Merry Christmas to you. But I didn't. I just kind of blanked because I was trying to keep it moving. But, and then I was telling my husband this, and he was like, "It's funny because you write books all about this, and you didn't say anything." And I was like, I know." I almost was like, "I just wish I had the house without lights on me, so I could be like, actually." So I wish other people, like children, could, I guess, do better than I did in that situation, but feel confident to share who they are, what they believe, and what they celebrate if they choose to, and what they do for fun, like be yourself and be able to tell people um, what you do, even if you don't have my stories with you. But if you do, it's really great. I feel really special when I see students bring my books into school, like Lailah's Lunchbox is really great during Ramadan time because I'll see students take this book to school and they'll explain what Ramadan is to their classmates. And I always feel like that's a really full circle moment for me.
Right. Yeah, and especially having been a teacher, that must be special to see it being shared at schools.
Yes, or on library displays, or even like talking to you, just seeing my books featured by people who just boost my writing voice and my books just makes me feel happy. Like it's special to see my book places apart from my house
Yeah. Yeah,
or
absolutely.
my parents' house.
And I know that your books are often based on your own experiences, which you said is sometimes wonderful to revisit those memories and sometimes can be really difficult. I'm trying to think,
Yes.
what was the book about bullying? I mean, about a girl
Oh,
who herself is, I
is it I Can Help?
yes, I can
This
help. And you
one?
said that it was actually kind of hard for you to go back and
Oh.
remember things that you had done that were kind of in the same position, but why, but at the same time it lets you kind of infuse those emotions into the book. Why is that so important to have that as part of the storytelling?
It's almost like therapy, right? When you write all your feelings out. I think it's important because when I write, the emotions and the feelings sometimes feel very raw. Like I'm not making it up. It's literally what happened. And I think when I explain this story, especially to students, and at the end, I'm like, I did what she did, especially the little ones are like, why? How did you do that? And I'm like, I know. And they all look so disappointed in me. And then I have to say, I know it was me. But I tell them, look, I know I was the bully and I didn't feel good. And I tell them, I still don't feel good. So I tell them, don't make my mistakes, be better. And even in this book, Unsettled, a lot of the experiences are mine. And I love it. But sometimes I'll like when it came out, I didn't read it for a long time because I was like, I've done that, written it, like give it some space. So sometimes if like I might just skip over the bad, not the bad parts, the sad parts, because I'm like, oh, let's just go to the happy places because I already lived that. So yeah.
Right. Right. But like you said, at the same time, having those kind of emotions, it must make it easier for kids to connect with it, I would imagine.
Yeah. I hope so. I really hope so because I'm not making it up usually. I mean, I'm fictionalizing, but a lot of it I can say, oh yeah, how did I feel when that happened? And I'll say, I remember like when I teased this boy, I was trying my best not to cry. So I remember I was blinking really hard and I wrote that in there, like I blinked the right amount of blink so I don't cry. And I look down, like even just making eye contact. Like I just remember being so embarrassed of myself. And I think yeah, and I don't know. and maybe that's the thing that all bullies go through at some point. They probably feel this regret, and I didn't do it a lot. I just did it to, I mean, I hope I didn't to this one child, but yeah, I think just, and I always tell them, we can always be kind and do better.
Right. Well, at the same time, I feel like there were probably a lot of kids that maybe that gave them permission to revisit things that they had done and say, "Oh, yeah, maybe I was the bully in that situation, and I could do better too."
Yes, and that hopefully it's not too late to do better, to apologize, to be the best person you can be.
Yeah, yeah, and I also love the fact that you incorporated, like you said, that details that you're fictionalizing it, but at the same time you're incorporating details that are really important to you, like with the parents being doctors and the name of the girl in the book. How do you choose when you are fictionalizing it, what you're going to keep or what you're going to change?
Ooh, ooh, that's a hard one. How do I choose? Oh, I don't know. Sometimes, so for this one, right? This was Hoda, my sister-in-law. So wait, let me show you her. There she is. So for her, this story was easier because it was a different person. So I just fictionalized a bunch. But for stories that are more like this one has more elements of real life, I don't know. I think I just go with what feels right at that time. Like I'll change names and situations, but a lot of the feeling is still there. But if I don't know if I know a proper answer to that. What do I keep and what do I leave out? Obviously, if it's like too similar to me and like if it's like a story about my siblings and I'm kind of throwing them under the bus, then I'll change that a bit. So I'm not making anybody feel really bad. And sometimes I had like call me Adnan. The personality of the boy Adnan is a lot like my brother.
Mm.
So I feel like a couple people read it and they were like, "Hey, this reads just like this brother," and I'm like, "Yep, you're right." So, sometimes it just happens.
Right. But like you said, I mean, sometimes the details will change, but that emotional core is still the same.
Yes, exactly that. You said it right.
Well, so what are you working on now? Are you going to be doing more middle grade or picture books, or I know
Yes,
about one that you have coming out soon.
yes. Zarina Divided, that comes out, I believe, May 2025, which seems like it's forever from now. Right, but that's a middle grade novel. So that one's written. I'm just doing kind of copy edits. Oh my gosh, I just realized I have to turn in my copy edits today. So good, I made this call. So that's due today. Oops, but I've done it. I just didn't email it. Okay, so that's something that's already done, right? Like I've written it. The other stuff I have been working on something more for adults with like the poetry and nonfiction. Like it's called, I think, creative nonfiction, where I'm writing about my life but fictionalizing it here and there. So that's been really fun to write, but hard to sort of get out there on what's the next thing I'm doing.
Is that the first
I wish,
written for adults? I mean, other than obviously like
yeah,
your blog and things like that, but the first like book that you've written?
yeah. Yes, yeah. So that's the first thing that I've written, but I find that it's with middle grade, I guess, picture books I already kind of quote unquote established in that world. Like people kind of already know who I am, whereas adults it's kind of scary because it's starting all over, it feels like.
Hmm.
So I'll see if my words in that way ever traditionally become a book. I hope so. Let's see. And then apart from that, I'm all out of picture book ideas, like nothing. So if an idea floats in my head, I'll work on that. And then I am working on something in middle grade, a novel in verse about field hockey. So that is something that is also in the works. But in terms of picture books, like not even on my radar. Right now it's just adults and middle grade. But maybe the picture books will float in my head.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. So,
I know.
but
I love picture books.
yeah. Do you have, I mean, between the two, do you have a favorite to write in?
Make picture books in middle grade? Is that the question?
If you do you have a preference between middle grade or picture books, or are they both
Oh,
just too different to
um,
really?
Um, I love the feeling when a picture book is done because it's so few words, but the edits are just so many to get, say, to get 500 words down. Oh, it's so much work because you're really going through each word. What I love about middle grade is that you have the space to write a lot more, and
Right.
you're free. You're not worrying about word count on every
Right.
page, but it's hard because you're suddenly 500 words is, multiplied by so much more. But I often tell picture book authors who are trying to become middle grade authors, just imagine it as a bunch of picture books stapled together. That always makes me feel like, okay, I can do it. Because if I know that it's like 20 picture books or 10, I can do it. But if it's like middle grade initially seemed so intimidating to me, but now I really love both worlds.
Oh,
Sorry,
no. Well, thank you for
I
taking
didn't
the
really tell you if I had a favorite.
No, no, that's fine because maybe you don't have a favorite. Maybe there are things, you like
Yeah,
one. Maybe that's not, maybe it's like picking your favorite child. That's not a fair question.
yeah. I think if I could write, if I had more picture book ideas, I think I would love that one more
Mm.
because then I'd be getting so much done. But I just don't have any ideas lately. They're like gone.
For now.
Yeah, hopefully for now.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us, especially if you're traveling. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that. It was so nice to talk with you and everybody who is joining us. Thank you for taking the time to watch today. If you joined,
yeah,
it'll be up soon on Instagram and later on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. It was so
yeah.
nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much for all your questions and hosting me with such warmth and for being flexible on changing to today. So
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you too because I know I remember mine are a little older now, but I remember when mine were little how hard it is to be able to go in a room and talk without
Yeah,
interruption.
I
Yes.
know. I hear them right now. Really quick, how old are your kids?
They are 9, 12, and almost 15.
Oh, okay. Those are cool ages. They're independent, but they're not. They still really need you,
Yeah,
right?
no, they're more independent, but they still like to be around us and spend time with us. Hopefully that
Oh,
will change.
special. Oh, I hope so. Those are really sweet ages. Oh, and I was just reading the comments. Sorry, I'm putting my head sideways because but thank you, Lisa and Amna, for your thoughts. Oh, cool.
Yes, thank
So
you.
thank
Thank
you
you
again.
for sharing. And we appreciate it. And using Urdu story time, that's so special. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for everybody who's joined us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch and share it with other people. So thanks to everybody, and we will see you again in 2025. Bye.
Bye.